What's up, you guys? It's Greg. I thought it'd be really cool to come with a really short breakdown on, as a renter, what you're actually paying for with your rent, because we've all heard the term, well, I'm paying X amount. And yes, just to confirm, you are paying more than just the landlord's mortgage payment. There are some other fees associated with that, and I wanted to go ahead and make you aware of that, because we as renters, and when I say we, I mean basically the entire population has rented at one point or another, should know what fees and what we're actually paying for. So first we have the landlord's principal, interest, taxes, insurance. The principal and interest is just the mortgage as we know it. It's the principal, the actual balance they owe, plus the interest. Taxes are not necessarily so surprising, which is something that if you own that home, you'd have to pay for anyway, and insurance, because landlords have to have, fire policies and landlord insurance. And then next we have management. So when I say management, I mean landlords will have people come and manage the properties for them, because a lot of landlords have other day jobs and other obligations. They don't have time or the skills to manage the property. They just know how to buy an investment property. So that's one cost that's associated with that, maybe about 10% of the rent, kind of depending on what the market is. But there is a fee associated with somebody actually managing the property, dealing with your calls, collecting the rent, things like that. So next we have maintenance and vacancy. In our minds as a renter, we're thinking, well, the responsibility falls on the landlord to pay for the repairs, which it does. But the landlord has to collect a certain amount of rent every single month and save that in a fund, so that way they have the ability to pay for those repairs when the time comes. Meaning, because if they have a property for 30 years and they have a tenant all 30 years, you're going to need a new roof, HVAC system, like you're going to have some big ticket items that need to get repaired. So they're having to forcefully save a portion of your rent. And most of it's just typical wear and tear. And as you know, when it comes to roofs and HVAC systems and big things like that, there is long-term plans set in place for that. But overall, the tenant does end up paying for that. So then next is vacancy. And if you have a single family home and that's not actually rented, it's costing the landlord X amount of dollars every single day that unit is not rented. But they still have a mortgage payment, they still have taxes, they still have insurance, and they still have a management company managing that property. So there needs to be some type of reserve for that. And then lastly is cash flow. There is a certain amount of dollars that the landlord makes on top of all those other expenses we talked about. And as a renter, it's really frustrating because it's really hard to get ahead when you're paying rent to someone else. But I guess one thing to keep in mind is that if landlords didn't have the ability to cover all their expenses and make a little bit of cash flow, they probably would just sell the house or sell the building, or the 1 to 4 unit, or sell the apartment complex to somebody else, and the rent would just increase anyway. Because if people are going and investing and not making a return on their money, they're probably not going to continue to do that, which therefore would decrease the amount of units available for rental, which would therefore increase the price of rent. So let's talk about a couple reasons you might get a rent increase. One would be inflation. You'll see a 2, 3, 4% increase in rent, and they're not actually making any more money on you from that rent increase. Your money is just going not as far due to inflation. This is not necessarily the landlord's fault. If you're going to be angry at somebody, I would be angry at the government for printing too much money and for President Nixon taking us off the gold standard in 71. Another reason you might get a rent increase would be just a market adjustment, meaning there's less apartments available. People are willing to pay more to move into your area, so the landlord knows that they can bump the rent and just get a new tenant in at that price if you don't want to pay for it. So they just pass on the rent increase to you because it's easier for them and it's easier for you if you just stay in that apartment and just pay what would be considered market value. You'll typically see this when a building sells to a different investor or a big commercial investor or to a young investor that knows the market. Sometimes you get kind of those mom and pop 1 to 4 family homes that have rents that are $300-$400 a month below market. You'll get somebody else come in and buy it. They'll do paint, carpet, countertop, cabinet, like something along that lines, to really increase the value of the property and then bump the rents up from there. Those aspects, inflation, market adjustments, or selling to new investors, are really the main reasons that you would end up getting a rent increase. I hope I was able to keep this video nice and short. I won't know until I'm editing it, but if it was nice and short, it'd be really cool if you'd hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. That would really help me out and really help the channel out. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed hearing about what your rent actually pays for and some of the costs that landlords incur. Hopefully you'll keep checking back on the channel and become a long-term subscriber. I'll catch you next video.